Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. It's actually the first time I'm doing something like this, and I have to tell you that my head has been round and round in circles in terms of the best way to do it. Should it be me live to video? Should it be a PowerPoint presentation scrolling? Should it be animation? And I just got so sick and tired of myself that I thought, why don't I just revert to what I know best and just come and sit and be here with you. And if I make some bloopses, it doesn't matter. If I need to drink water, it doesn't matter. So welcome to the webinar, and this is entitled Ignite Your Life. I hope you've also got something delicious to drink, whether it's tea, coffee, wine, if it's wine hour, maybe some pen and paper. But mostly I'm wanting to share with you how and where I've come from, and how I have personally ignited my own life and ditched my glitch. So for those of you that don't necessarily know me, because I think it's one of the things that I understand, that I think that I live with a lot of honesty. I attempt to live my life with courage. Yet when I wrote my second book, so it's just been released, called Ditch Your Glitch, and in Afrikaans, it's Laat Los Jou Last. And my first book, Clear Your Clutter, was also written in Afrikaans, Ruim Jou Rommel Op. Have you ever heard such a lovely title? But in the second book, my publishers asked me to talk about Ignite Your Life, which is one of my email courses. I'm going to tell you, my arm just slipped off my desk. I'm going to tell you how it came about. But one of the things that I decided I needed to do was to share more of my story, because I've told snippets of my story. So I am Kate Emerson. I'm actually Antonia Kate Walker Emerson. That's how I was born, but I'm really known as Kate Emerson. And about 13 years ago, when I became a life coach, one of my first business partners, we no longer are business partners, we decided we were each other's clutter. He called me Kick-Ass Kate, and I still love that name, and yet it's almost got a twist, and I'll read you an email from a friend and client a little bit later, because my other name that I'm known as is Quick Shift Deva, and it's Deva, D-E-V-A, not Diva. And Deva is a beautiful Sanskrit word that comes from, its origins are shining one, or divine being, or good spirit. And I think the essence of that is really and truly not meant to be egotistical, like, oh, I think I'm better than anybody else. But perhaps you can see around my neck, I wear stars, and it's part of my logo. And it really is the essence of how do we, every single one of us, so that means you, sitting here with me right now, how do we all find a way to let go of the rubbish? If you're not listening in from South Africa, and I know some of you are elsewhere in the world, we have a beautiful onomatopoeic word here called kak. And kak stands for all the stuff that we hold on to. If you are not willing to let go of that stuff, you're never going to be able to shine your true light. And your light comes from your heart center. And that's exactly what Ignite Your Light or Ignite Your Life, or that beautiful song by Katy Perry known as Fireworks. Did you ever see it? And in the video, literally, she had these fireworks blazing out of her heart center. And that, for me, is what the essence of the word Deva means. So I'm going to be sharing about maybe 30 minutes with you. I am not too structured in my approach. I have a couple of notes that I've written. I've got a couple of photographs to share with you. And I also have to tell you that when I speak to audiences around defrag your life and declutter your life and ditch your glitch, one of the kind of ideas that I preach about or talk about or hopefully inspire people is not too much of the multitasking. So I said hello at the beginning, and some of you are saying hello, but if you want to chat amongst each other on the chat screen, please go ahead. But you'll also see that below where I am speaking with you, there is a place to ask me questions. So please go ahead. If something springs to mind while I'm talking or while I'm sharing or maybe mentioning about just anything, and you want to pop me a question, just type it straight away. It will come to me via email and I'll reply afterwards. I'm not going to attempt to reply now. So with that, what I thought I wanted to do was just share a little bit about me and kind of where I've come from. So I think I had what I would consider an idyllic childhood. I had lived with a family of 6. My granny came with my mom and dad from England. I have 2 older brothers, and I was obviously then the youngest. And I wanted to show you this because I was born in England, but my love of travel started when I was 3 years old. Look, I loved blue even then. And this is me on the ship. I cannot for the life of me remember the name. But at 3, my family and I took that long, beautiful journey. And I think that set up my love of travel. And I think I've always endeavored to live my life in that way. So when I talk about this idyllic childhood, I really do believe this is true of every single one of us. Our parents love us. They may not always know how to show us, like we don't always know how to show other people that we love them. We have some glitches that sometimes play their little self-debilitating loops and kind of run and ruin our lives. But I honestly and truly in my heart, I don't believe that anyone sets out intentionally to hurt us or to harm us. And that's an NLP presupposition that states that every behavior has a positive intention. And yes, even when we look at some of the atrocities happening right now in our world, what happens is that every single person is trying to somehow make themselves feel better. And as a child, one of the things in this idyllic childhood is that we don't always get everything that we want in our own way. And sometimes that can feel a little brattish, like, oh, I didn't get what I want. But often it's just something deep inside us, in our psyche, in our soul, in our heart space, doesn't get what we want at the right time, kind of in the way that we want it. And it just sets up patterns of being. And I remember as a kid, let me find this picture. Well, you'll see why. This is me and my mom, 1968, which is the year I was born. My nickname when I was a child was Porky. Can you see this? I'm going to put that one away now. Thanks, Mum. What she told me once was that in England, all the mums every week almost had a competition to see whose child could put on the most weight. I think I won. And I was nicknamed Porky, and it was kind of always a little bit of a joke and a little bit fun. But I was also nicknamed the Michelin Man. So let me show you this. It's a very cute picture, but look at my thighs. So can you see on my thighs, I've got these little fat rolls, which are really normal. But what happened is, although it was a teasing component, I took that inside me, and it was like I always felt not good enough and not worthy. And what happened was that sort of teasing element became for me something that was a real glitch. And in my book, I write in the introduction, before we go any further, I have to admit that I am not proud of everything I have done in my life. And yet, at the same time, I can now say that I am proud of how I eventually handled it. I have made peace with parts of myself that I once judged and the things that I've done that made me feel bad. And one of the things that I created and manifested in my life was almost as a family, we used to gather in the kitchen. So my mom would cook a roast for dinner, and at about 11 o'clock, my dad would come from outside. Maybe my mom would come from the TV room. My brothers and I would gather from wherever we were studying or reading, and we would make sort of beef sandwiches with some delicious onions, and off we'd go to eat. And that was kind of a little connecting time. But what happened for me is that turned into sleep eating. And if you don't know what sleep eating is, it is this almost like horrific notion of I would wake up and I would have literally a piece of toast plastered to my chin, or I would have some bacon bits kind of dripping down my cleavage, or I would have crumbs in my bed, and I'd be like, oh, I obviously ate something in the kitchen last night. And what happened was that then turned into bulimia. And there are very, very few people who I have to say who knew that about me, because I've now written about this entire story in Ditch or Glitch, because it was something at the time that I hid. And it's almost this, like I became this person, puffy-faced, belligerent, little bit of a I don't give a damn kind of teenager. And at school, I was a fairly good student. When I was younger, I actually was cut out to be head girl at the boarding school I was at. I was either first or second, and like probably many of you listening to this, I would come home with 88, 90, 92%. And jokingly, once again, my dad would say, well, Kate, where's the other 8%? Boom, not good enough. Nothing that I bring home is good enough. And I know my dad was trying to inspire me to do better, but my own glitch, the way I interpreted it, made me feel less than, made me feel like, oh, it's not worth trying. And so as a teenager, when I switched schools, I became a little bit of a, I don't really give a damn. And my grades slipped, and I kind of got in with the unruly crowd at the new school, and I was more interested in living my life and being a teenager and boys and parties and alcohol and And this bulimia was going on. So I think for many, many, many years, I was wearing a mask. And yet, when you looked at me from the outside, I appeared confident. I traveled the world. I would go after things that I wanted. I found it really easy to meet people, to flirt, to make amazing money at the restaurant that I worked in. And so from the outside, I don't know that people ever really knew what was going on. And I think that that is true, probably, of you. Maybe that's why you're here. So this course and also just this webinar, which is really just a me sharing what I've been through and seeing if there's a way that I can help you. This is, I mean, you're probably here because there's something in your life that you are feeling disappointed about or guilty about, perhaps stressed about, maybe unbelievably overwhelmed, like nothing you do is good enough, like you've got too many things going on and you're dropping those balls, you're not even attempting to juggle them anymore. Or maybe you're just feeling like, oh my God, is this all there is to life? There's too much day at the end of my energy. There's way too much month at the end of my money. I just think, is this it? Is this all there is? Like, it's got to be better. Will I ever find love again? Will I ever find money and abundance? Will I ever find purpose and passion and direction? And I know because often people look at me and they think I'm this, and I know this because people have told it to me, that I'm this bubbly, sparkly, always effervescent. I'm not. I've been through my share of stuff. I have been through times where I think, that's it. Whoops, that's my big ring on my desk. I don't want to be here anymore. I've had enough. It feels so bad and so painful, whether it's because I've lost all my money or whether it's because I don't think I can deliver proper services to a client or whether my heart is broken. And there are times when I have absolutely felt like I don't want to be here on this planet anymore. It's just all too much. I don't have the wherewithal. I don't have the skills. I don't have the motivation and, more importantly, the inspiration on how to change anything. And one of my own annoying little sayings that I love is everything, we want is just outside our comfort zone. And sometimes I hate that expression, and yet it's one I quote often. It's by Robert Allen. And I know for myself that it's true. So just like you, I have imploded and contracted, and then at some point I managed to come back to some tools and some tricks and some ideas that have worked for me. But it has been a real long journey. And sometimes what I know is that when you find someone that you feel you can trust, that you resonate with at some level, maybe you think their journey is parallel to your own, what we can do is we can help short circuit the next person's journey. And I don't mean that in an arrogant, superficial way, because sometimes we need to go through our journey and there is no short circuit, but it just means that someone on the other end can mentor you through or help you through. And I know that that's what happened for me because, well, let me go back to the bulimia. I don't remember how it started. I do remember how it ended. It went on for years. And that's what's so interesting in this book. When I say people now know because it's out in this book. And one of my best friends came to me and she was quite distressed. And she said, Kate, I've never known this about you. I thought I knew you really well. And I think it was time for me to just be another layer honest and open and vulnerable. And like I said, this isn't structured and I'm just chatting to the camera. So now I've completely lost my train of thought, which is not meant to be that cool when you're running a webinar. But I was talking about how bulimia ended. I was in a hotel in England working, and there was a wonderful lady from the local village. And she thought sometimes she would just do something nice for me. And I was out in the afternoon. I was going for a walk in Gloucestershire, beautiful part of England. And she tidied my room and made my bed and changed my sheets and vacuumed. And then she said, but Kate, she said, I found like something in your bin. And she said, I don't know what it was. And she said it was like this, like almost like water, but it was heavy. And I remember it was a gold, it was almost, yeah, it's the color of something I'm looking at here, this moss. It was this gold bag of vomit that I had been sick into. It's not pretty to talk about. And because I was going out, I just literally tied it in a knot and left it in a bin, because what I would do a lot later is I would need to go down to the bathroom and pour it down the toilet and flush it away and kind of pretend it didn't exist, because a whole bunch of us that were working there actually shared the same bathrooms. And I remember recoiling and running up to my room and just the horror, almost at myself, first of all, but almost at having been found out. And shortly after that, I went backpacking on my own through Southeast Asia, so Nepal, Thailand, Sumatra, Indonesia. And that for me was a real starting point at finding myself, finding my spirit. I'd always had a spiritual kind of angle to me. But what happened was I got off the plane in Nepal and I'm walking through the streets. I didn't even have anywhere booked. I'm looking for somewhere not too expensive to stay. And there, splat on the side of the road, was a cow that was dead and literally just its skin ripped open and its insides ripped out. And they were carving off pieces of meat for, Nepalese to buy. And the smell and the stench and the heat, it was like 40 degrees. And I kind of checked in with myself and I thought, if I eat this, I am going to die of food poisoning. And I instantaneously stopped eating meat and became vegetarian and stayed one for 5 years. And the other thing that happened was I started eating chili, which I'd never done. I was 22 at the time. I couldn't even eat things like chutney or black pepper or anything like that. And I just started eating in a whole new way, and I started looking after myself. It's that old-fashioned time where I traveled with a bum bag and I had traveler's checks. I didn't have a credit card. There were no such things as smartphones. I would find a city and fax my parents, like, I'm still alive, I'm okay, I'm in Kuala Lumpur. And it was this amazing start of this journey of connecting back with myself. But it didn't become plain sailing from there. I mean, 12 years ago when I trained as a life coach, I thought, right, that's it. I found my path. I know what I'm doing. I'm on my way. Yahoo! And then a couple of years in, I have all these wonderful clients. I'm living this life. I had a new love interest. I was making some fairly good money. I was like, okay, I've come, that feeling? I've come into my own. And not in an arrogant way, but I was finding my path. I thought, okay, I'm all right. I'm getting on. But what happened was I didn't even know that I was depressed. And I met my friend for coffee one morning. And she looked at me, and she was going through a divorce. And I thought I was there to support her. And she looked at me and she said, Kate, how are you doing? And when someone who loves you asks, how are you doing? And they really mean it and they want the answer. Well, my tears filled up with, I was going to say sweat, not with sweat. My eyes filled up with tears. And suddenly they were just pouring down my face and I was sobbing at this table. And I had this notion that I have been a rabbit puller, pulling rabbits out of the hat all the time, like most of us do, and just making a plan and making things happen and, just getting on with our lives. But I said that while I was sitting there talking to her, I said, I feel like every single blimmin' rabbit that I've pulled out that hat, it feels like I'm in the bottom of that hat. And I feel like all of those rabbits, those millions of them, are stomping on my head. And rabbits have really big feet. And it took me a long while to realize, actually, and what unfolded was that I was having some form of depression. But I'm a stubborn little thing a lot of the times, a real Taurian. That's where my Taurian streak comes out. And I didn't kind of want to admit it. And it didn't seem to be messing with my business. And it took me another year. I'd moved to Cape Town. And I realized that I had been crying every day for about a year. And it got to the point where it was so bad. I'd moved to Cape Town with my partner. I talk about the vision board in the book that helped me get there. And things had just gone horribly wrong. We together made a bunch of horrendous, and I mean horrendous, financial decisions. And it was just like my whole life hit rock bottom, but from the outside. Beautiful mask. We lived in this incredible Atlantic Beach Golf estate right on the water, multi-million rand homes. I had 6 animals, a partner, 2 Harley Davidsons, and 2 cars in the garage. Beautiful life. But I was crumbling on the inside. And I'll never forget the turning point. My mom was turning 70. And she was coming out from England, and my eldest brother and his family were coming out, and we were going to have this incredible 5-star holiday. And we decided that the 3 kids were going to, and their partners were going to club together and buy my mom something really special. And we deliberated over what it should be. And I'd been to Stellenbosch and found this incredible South African bronze artist, very well known. And I'd found this beautiful gift, and it all came tumbling down on me when I realized, A, I couldn't go away. B, I couldn't contribute to my mom's gift. And I remember that first courageous call I had to make to my mom, saying, Mom, and she kind of had a heads up because my mom and I are really close. She kind of knew that we were not getting on that well. in our lives that, sometimes, and it got to the point literally if I had 20 Rand, let's say not even $2, it would be a question of, do we put petrol in one of the cars that's the cheapest to run? Do we put electricity in? Do we feed the animals? Do we feed us? Do we buy alcohol because that's what we feel like doing and just numbing out? And it really was this toss-up. I had a property in Joburg I was about to lose. All of my bills were in arrears. I was about to, everything was just disappearing. And I had to say to her, Mom, I can't do this, and I can't come away, and I can't contribute to the gift. And just, it was probably one of the hardest things to do. Then I had to tell my brother. And what was amazing was the moment that I just said, bleh, you know what I mean by that. When you've just said, this is it, I can't do it anymore, and you kind of break down. Have you got to that point yet? Because sometimes I think getting to the bottom is a whole lot easier than being suspended halfway, because halfway you don't know if you're going up and everything's getting better or if you're on the way down. When you're down, you know. And I knew, okay, this is rock bottom. And I remember I called someone that I had worked in his restaurant a few years before, and I said, I'm in trouble and I need to work. And his answer was, how quickly can you get to Joburg? And I had to slowly rebuild my life. And the only way I could do that was by letting go of absolutely everything that I knew at the time. My home, my partner, I'm saying 5 of my 6 animals. I've got my one tiger that's here with me now. He kind of follows me wherever I go. And sometimes he'll come and say hello whenever I'm speaking to a client. So he might walk past me and the whole screen will just become African tiger. Can you cope? And I had to start again. And that was in 2009 when I had to completely rebuild my life. And you know what? I lost everything in order to gain everything. And it really has been profound. And so a lot of people that know me now have seen that transition. And for me, what happened was a few years ago, I remember reading a book by Susie Orman, the financial guru. And it was talking about this money exercise. And I've done, since my 20s, since that spiritual time, I've done lots, and I mean lots of self-work and journaling and reflection and counseling and workshops and you name it, self-development stuff, because it's stuff that's important to me. Sorry, my necklace is banging on the desk. And I remember this exercise was about how much debt do you have now? So I knew that. I knew what I owed. I knew who I owed. I knew when I owed it by. I was very clued up with what I owed. I wasn't not rabbit in headlights. I wasn't ostrich in the sand. But then it was about, well, what's the memory behind that? Or where does it come from? Or where's the link? And I remember I was in bed and I sat bolt upright and my eyes kind of went wide. And I was like, and I took a deep breath and I realized that the exact amount of money, debt, that I had manifested in my world was the exact amount from the first business that I'd had with my mom and my dad. Because what happened after that spiritual trip in Southeast Asia, I was headed for Australia. And like a typical sort of 22-year-old, the way I was going to earn my money when I was there was working in a bar or a hotel, or, and Australia's got quite a high drinking rate per capita. And I was going into Darwin, which is the highest drinking capital of Australia. And I just thought, I want something different. I don't want that. And my plan was to come back home, say hi to my family, because I hadn't seen them for about 2 years. And then I was going up through Africa. I trained in HIV and AIDS work and education in that field. And I wanted to go and travel and work and do some volunteer work. And I came back home. And for whatever reason, my mom and dad, my dad had bought my mom a business. And my mom is one of the most beautiful people I know. And she is a pharmacist and had worked at Boots in England and a couple of well-known pharmacies here in South Africa. My dad had been this exceptionally entrepreneurial, inspirational man, and also made a lot of money. It's why he brought us to South Africa, because he could just see the opportunities here. And we're all really grateful for that he had that vision. But kind of between them, somehow they had this glitch little system going on, and they bought my mum a business. And she sat down. Now, if any of you know Durban, there is a botanical gardens like in most cities, and there are these wee little birds that come, and you get these big scones and cream and jam and these old mosaic tables, and these little birds would come and try and steal your crumbs off your plate. And my mum sat there and she was in tears, and she said, Kate, I can't do this. I can't do this business, and I don't know why we've done it, and I'm failing, and I feel like a failure, and it's miserable, and we're losing a lot of money, and would you stay and help me, and I'll give you all my shares. And so I had this dilemma, And it took me, I remember it so well, 4 days to make up my mind. And I decided to stay. And I had a myriad of reasons. And the reasons to stay outweighed the reasons to leave and go up through Africa. And I think it was my glee and my glitch at the same time. I went through, it was my first real business. I mean, obviously I'd waitressed while I was at Varsity to get money to go overseas, and I'd worked in this hotel in England, but this was now my baby and family business. And, director of Tinsley Clinic. And some of you maybe in Durban might remember it. And it was hell. It was absolute hell on, I don't know, my mom and I worked 12 to 14 hours a day. I tried everything. I thought, if anybody can fix this, my dad kept saying to me, if anybody can fix this, you can. I lived at home. We didn't draw a salary. I tried things on the side. And at the end, it's a long, convoluted story, but the short end of it is that about 5 years later, this business kind of in totality had lost R250,000. And I, in my life, had created that same amount of personal debt in my life. And it was like, my God, what am I doing? I had taken that business so personally and I couldn't separate it. And it was just like I was getting nowhere. And I just thought, what the hell? Like, what am I going to do? So knowing that link for me was pivotal. But now what? And so I always went back to the things that I know, the things that have worked at some level, because, you know, they work and then we have a glitch and then we have to work again and then we have a glitch. So I just went back to going, okay, what do I know from my coaching? Because I was a coach and I'd closed that business in order to just get back on my feet again, and was working in this restaurant for a year. And I thought, I need and want a different life. And I went back to basics, back to vision boarding, back to cycle of life, back to goal setting, back to all the crap in my head, those self-limiting beliefs, the fears, the who I hadn't forgiven and why. And I just went step by step again. But one of the biggest shifts that I made was I should show you. I'm looking there at my bookshelf. The Success Principles, Jack Canfield. I was reading his book simultaneously to Susie Orman's. And one of the chapters speaks about mastermind groups. And I was like, mastermind groups, what are those? And the essence of it is just asking people for support and accountability. Because I think one of my own glitches is that sometimes I'm so independent, stubbornly so, that I can cut, off other people. I can stop asking for help. I can think that I can do it on my own. And that's a lie. None of us do anything in isolation. And I realized that perhaps I let myself off the hook too easily. Perhaps I give up too soon. Perhaps I let the old self-limiting beliefs win. So I talk about changing, but do I really? And I thought, I've got to get myself a group of accountability. And I think, I'm just looking here at my notes, I think that that's one of the things. So I don't know what your challenges are currently, but I suspect, and some of you have told me some of those, and some of you have run me before this, and some of you have been in contact via email. But I know that the essence of it is life isn't working out as you expected or as you want, or you're not having the greatest communication with your partner, or money seems to be glitching, or you don't feel worthy, or you just feel like you're pushing so hard and getting nowhere, or it's easy for you to just run away and hide your head in the sand, or you don't trust yourself, so you kind of dismiss any intuitive feelings that you've got. And the bottom line is we can con ourselves. You know, self-reflection takes utter guts and courage. And what happens is sometimes we go a little bit in. We kind of, that proverbial stick our toe in the water, but we never actually just jump in and plunge in. And you know how alive you feel when you do that. So we start and we go, yeah, okay, I can start this journey of self-reflection. Or I'm so peed off with my life that I have to. So you almost get pushed into doing something different. But one of the challenges with that is if you are trying to move away from something that you don't like, whether it's an abusive relationship, a bad job, your own inability to make money, your own sense of self, your time management, and you're being pushed by what you don't want, at some point, what happens is if you don't have something more, something bigger, something more interesting and compelling to pull you forward, what happens is you're going to slip backwards. It's almost like one of those, it's like the law of gravity. So I started going, okay, I need a group of people. I need some kind of system, some kind of formula that will keep me moving forward. And I knew that that's why I existed as a coach. That's why life coaches, executive coaches, business coaches, transformational people doing amazing work in the world, it's why they exist, because at some point, there is strength in asking for help. But I think until that time, I hadn't really got it. And I thought, do you know what? If I really want to shift my life exponentially, not just by notch, and we can all do notch by notch, but I wanted more of an exponential growth. I thought I need some kind of support. And let me grab some water. One of the things that happens that we all do when we think, I don't like my life how it is, some things aren't working, or just simply I want more, or I deserve more, is typically what we do is we go to the people closest to us. Maybe our family if we're still living at home, maybe our husband, wife, our loved ones, maybe our siblings, or typically our closest friends. And we go to our circle, we go to our connectors, we go to the place that we feel safe. And quite often when we ask them for help or advice, one of two things happens. Firstly, our friends and family don't like it when we're going through a difficult phase. It makes them not only uncomfortable, but they love us, so they want the best for us. So typically, what they will do is they will attempt to give us advice or attempt to fix it or kind of take over or do whatever they can to make it okay, because they don't like to see us in pain or struggling. And it's a little bit like cutting that butterfly out of the cocoon before it actually flapped its wings to get them strong enough. And so they try and fix it for us rather than giving us, so it's again, that metaphor of, giving a person a fish rather than teaching them how to fish. So that's the first thing. They often don't know how to help us. They want to just jump in and fix it. The second thing that happens that is often not as nice to maybe say, yeah, this is true, this happens, but the people around us at some level, and when I say some level, it's often unconscious, it's subversive, it's not out and out, oh, I don't want you to change, but what happens is the people that are closest to us somehow have a vested interest in us staying the same. Let me unpack that for you, because you might automatically go, yeah, that's true. Because if, let's say I have a partner, and I'm going, you know what, I suddenly think I want to get fit, I want to go to yoga, I want to lose a little bit of weight, I want more energy, I want to be more productive, boom. And I set up this whole pattern of support and boom, my body's starting to change, I've got more energy, I'm feeling a little sexier. Well, what does it say about them? So what does it say about their ability or inability to look after themselves, to respect their body, to lose a bit of weight, or just to get a little bit fitter? It also might mean, oh, well, if Kate's changing, maybe she's no longer going to love me. Maybe she's going to be more interested in somebody else. And so without even realizing it, we set up these patterns of kind of control. But I hope you understand what I mean. It's often happening under the radar. So if you really want to make some changes in my life, I think it's vital in terms of where do you go to for help and support? Knowing that asking for support is really vital. And then it's about getting the right support at the right time for the right reason. So let me tell you a little bit, because I realize I've been chatting already for 32 minutes. So give me up to another 8 minutes. Ignite Your Life is an amazing course that, there's my cat sneezing. Stripey. Okay. Real life time. Ignite Your Life was born out of my desire and need to be location free. So I travel around the world and I like being able to help people from anywhere at any time. It was also a way of helping people that was more affordable, because literally the cost of this course is the same as spending 2 hours with me face to face or over Skype. But more importantly, it's also about that concept that I believe that people can make changes. When I say on their own, I mean in the comfort of their own home, once they are given the right steps and the right guidance and the right formula. So if your challenges are, you don't know where you're headed, you don't know kind of what's up in your life, you haven't taken stock, you don't know how to go about shifting the limiting beliefs, you always let that little voice in your head win, you're fearful of things, you've got baggage, you know that there are people in your life that you need to let go of, you know that you can't say yes or no at the right time, you don't have the right boundaries. Well, this is a course that's going to take you literally through a formula, A, B, C, D, because that's what I had to do. I had to go back to basics. I had to go back and say, what's the first step? Okay, cool. What's the next step? Okay, cool, I can do that. And it is sequential. So I have created it as a 5-week course because, 3 months, 6 months, a year can just feel too long. And it's a course that I wrote a few years ago. It's then been retweaked. It's then been augmented into my book. I've then taken the book and put it back into the course and re-edited it. So it's an amazing way to get help, life coaching help from me as your guide, as your support. And so let me tell you practically how it works. When you sign up for the course, it starts on the following Monday. And you get a mail every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, first thing in the morning. And what I ask is that, if you want to, you don't change your life by chance, you change it by choice. Jim Rohn said that. So you have to be willing to spend some time. I say on those 3 days, you need at least an hour. So if you can do an hour a day, you're going to be well on your way. 1 hour to carve out. And that might be your hardest challenge. How do I make time? So you might have to say no to superfluous meetings. You might have to get up half an hour earlier. Maybe you have to ask someone to take your children to work to school, not to work, that's called child labor. Take your children to school so that you can have a little bit of extra time. You might have to get creative and inventive and find ways to gird your loins and ask for help and support and put yourself back on your priority list. But I know that when you do that, you will find that right now it might just be an ember. It might be a flicker of a flame in your heart. It might feel like somebody has thrown a bucket of water and there is no flame. I want you to find that flicker of a flame and every day be doing something towards your journey with yourself. And I don't mean it in a selfish way. The more you give to yourself, the more you are able to give to your family, to the community, to work, to the world at large. So I'm never saying just do it for yourself and sod everybody else, but I'm also not saying do everything for everybody else at the expense of yourself. I believe in and, not either or, okay? So how do you give more to yourself so that you can give more to your world, all right? That is the premise that I work from. So you need to spend some time journaling, the old-fashioned writing in a beautiful journal to access left and right brain, to really unpack who you are and what's important to you. And then we're going to have an online support community, which is a private, it is on Facebook, just because that is one of the most accessed platforms, but it's a private group. People can only access that group through a link. People can find it, but they won't get invited. I've never had to take somebody off the group yet. And if anybody's on there that is causing any trouble, I will just instantly remove them. It's our space to have some support on that journey, because I know that that's what exponentially shifted my life, particularly in the last 4 years since I learned to ask for that support and help. And then you're going to get teleseminars. So that is live from anywhere in the world. So a while ago, I was running a teleseminar with my mastermind group, completing a book. And I was in Las Vegas where I was shooting this movie. I don't know if you can see I wear a key as well, The Secret of the Keys. And so I was in Vegas on my bed looking at the strip in the distance. And I had clients in Dubai, Scotland, England, Greece, Cape Town, Joburg, you name it. So that teleseminar, you can call in via Skype credit from anywhere in the world. And those are live with me on the phone, you guys and girls on the other end. You can ask me anything. And you'll have access to those teleseminars for 6 months. They're also recorded. So if you do happen to miss one, but you want to go, I wonder what everybody else is battling with, or perhaps Jane asks a question that, wow, that's my life. That's amazing. And you get the answer. So an email, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, a support platform, teleseminars, and it's about having a guide. So I don't know about you, but so often when I'm attempting to work through a self-development or transformational book, I can get lost. It can get stuck on my bedside table. There's no one helping or cajoling or kicking my butt to move forward. And that really is one of the aims when I work with people through these courses, that you have access to me. That's what gives me a kick, a little burst of energy, is when I know that what you're doing through me, because if you're spending your hard-earned money, it's really important to me that you get what it is that you've paid for. So the course does have a guarantee. And all I say that attend 2 of the teleseminars, do all the work. And if you really and honestly feel that this course hasn't worked for you, I'll give you your money back. That's really important to me. So I know some of you have submitted questions. I'll answer them after the webinar. I'm actually quite amazed that this recording is sitting at 39 minutes right now because I can just see the screen as we're here together. So I hope that I've answered some questions. I also hope that by sharing a little bit of my past, my glitches, my bulimia, my losing my money, I didn't even tell you about how my dad didn't speak to me for a year after yelling down the phone to me that I was a failure, and he just thought I was never going to make anything of my life. And it's just, we all have our stories, and our stories make up who we are. But the question is, do you still love the stories you're telling yourself? Or do you want to create a different story? Do you want to claim your place? Do you want to find that ember of a flame and find a way to add some oxygen, some fuel, some paraffin or jet fuel if you need it? And how do you take control and take responsibility and learn how to say no and do my famous potato exercise, which is the forgiveness exercise that you will go through that literally liberates people. And I wanted to just read you something for the last minute that I was sent by a client. Let me just find it here for you. And she's just recently said this. Wow, wow, wow. I'm so proud of you. Your second book, your movie coming up, your constant contact with us all. I must admit that I read your story and the client stories first, being the nosy Parker I am. And I'm really impressed. I didn't know about your food issues, and I was touched by how gently you wrote about yourself. It was very brave of you making yourself so vulnerable and risking exposure, but I think it's a risk that will make you even more appealing with your audience because you trust us enough to put it out there, and people will respond to that with kindness. But this is the bit that's important. She says, so, no more self-kicking ass. Remember, that's my nickname. And instead, it seems there is a love for self that shines through. For other people who have to ditch their glitch and ignite their life, they know already how to kick their own butts. They've done it internally constantly. But now with this book and with this course, you show them how to get the same results, but with the gentleness of love. And I really want to bring that to you. I understand that my energy around this is compassion with a kick. So, I can be the pushiest person on the planet. I can nag and cajole and sometimes feel like a teacher with a ruler. But at the same time, I'm with you. And I can cry at the drop of the hat, whether it's because of something that you're going through that's painful